So I was going to bring up the topic of like what we want a regular schedule to be for 2023 in terms of like, you know, what frame, whether we want to keep the Tuesday at 7:30, whether we want to, you know, do it first Tuesday of the month, last Tuesday of the month, or you know, whatever. But Craig, do you want to decide about that now, or should we wait till the next week?
Yeah, we can table it. Right. Yeah, for sure. We can wait and see. And the only thought I have is I know there was one point where they were trying to say, or someone said that maybe Zoom meetings weren't going to be acceptable anymore. And I just want to verify that that's okay, or if we have to do something different. But otherwise we can table it till later.
Yeah. Antoinette had mentioned that to me at some point. He has let me continue doing Zoom meetings. I can check with her if the regular scheduled meetings have to be done. I think we were like, if we want to, I know we had, you know, mentioned it would be nice to get together, maybe and take a field trip to Emma's farm, but I know like this time is also tricky sometimes for, you know, to like you're in Toronto right now, it's not really great for you to have to be somewhere physically. So
right.
Do you prefer to be in person?
I think at this point this works really well, and maybe, you know, it would be really nice to have actual meetings, but right now I'm very happy doing it like this.
Right.
You're breaking up. I don't know if it's me or you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can. It's just a little
I'm mute.
a little broken, but it might be me. I don't know.
No, she's definitely breaking up.
Okay, thanks for the feedback.
For some reason, we're not allowed to continue via Zoom, but as far as I know, let us, yeah, they haven't objected to it, so I think we can continue.
Okay, that sounds good. I think we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna dial in.
Still there? Did we lose you, Alexis?
Again. No.
Do we have anyone else on the meeting right now?
Okay.
Yes, Elaine, and yes, Alexis, we're losing you.
Is it any better now, or you still have a hard time hearing me?
That was a full sentence. That was the first full sentence.
Yes, that was the first full sentence.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Hopefully, just stop me if you can't hear me anymore. The first item on the agenda was the bottle bill debrief. So the sustainable CT had, I think as we had discussed last meeting, there was a coffee hour that I contacted Sustainable CT to ask if they had, if member communities had any insight into what they were doing with the NIPS money. And Sustainable CT said, oh yeah, we're planning, you know, it's an item that has been brought up by a number of municipalities. We're going to have like a coffee hour webinar on the topic. And so that was held last Friday. I invited Bob Carlson to join, so I know that he was on it as well, because I saw him on the Zoom. And it was basically just the opportunity for different municipalities to share what they're doing in, and just kind of ask questions. It was very informal and just kind of a general discussion. It wasn't necessarily like somebody presenting on a particular idea.
Yeah.
The interesting things that came up were, I think everybody, like some people, the larger municipalities, I think it was Ridgefield, for example, hired like a recycling coordinator. So, there were some municipalities who use this as an excuse to like add an additional head count, not as an excuse, I'm sorry, as a mechanism for adding additional head count for something specific to recycling. Maybe this gave them the like additional nudge that they needed for a post that was already kind of in the works. Another interesting thing that was brought up was one of the municipalities was saying that they partnered with some nonprofits who, let's say, had, underemployed people, that they use the NIPS funds to basically pay people, but in kind of collaboration with some nonprofits who are trying to get people into like work who, maybe had fallen on difficult times and needed income. And so they were using them to help with the cleanup along the side of the road, because, there are these funds available that we can pay people to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that was interesting that sort of caught my attention. I will admit there was a lot of kind of like sidelined conversations into like a composting, municipal composting program, which I know we had originally kind of thought like, oh, I wonder if this could be used in that capacity. I didn't really I have an email into Jessica Leclerc, who's sort of the sustainable CT person, to kind of clarify. I got the sense that was like a side conversation and not pertaining to the bottle bill, but it just came up as so many people were, there's a lot of overlap of like, let's try to minimize waste, and therefore let's talk about, municipal composting programs. So what I wanted to confirm with her was that definitively we can't use the bottle bill funds towards implementing a composting program. But I'll let you know what I hear back from her on that. But I got the sense that was just it just happened to come up, and it wasn't having anything to do with the bottle bill, but just like a lot of other municipalities in the sustainable CT program just happened to be thinking about composting or implementing a composting program. But I thought of all the ideas that came up, I mean, there are definitely people mentioned the fact that there are, these street cleaning to like vehicles or kind of plugins that are available to sort of like suck the trash off the streets.
Right.
But I imagine, without nobody discussed cost per se. I don't think any of the municipalities on the call had actually purchased one. They just were kind of saying, well, this exists, and
Right.
this might be a possibility for a way to use the funds. But I don't think there were any giant, the city the city of New Haven wasn't on the call. It was largely smaller towns. And I think that, we're not getting the kind of money that would allow us to necessarily go out and buy like an $80,000 vehicle. But it was referenced. But I thought the idea of the nonprofit partnership kind of was interesting. The other thing, let's see, there was something else that came up. Hold on, let me pull it up. But anyway, I didn't necessarily, and I'll debrief with Bob. I don't know if, maybe something from his perspective, being more tapped into, what's going on in the town. He might have some ideas that his interest was sparked based on the conversation, but to me, it was, there wasn't anything besides that one partnership with nonprofits that made me say aha, this would be really great for us to do in North Stonington. But I haven't had a chance to talk to Bob since then, and I can ask him if anything kind of sparked his attention. I could send, they did report the Zoom, and I can certainly circulate it if anybody wants to listen to it, if there's something that, maybe it went in one ear and out the other to me, but not to every, maybe somebody else who listens to it might say like, what about this idea? So that was on that. Any additional thoughts that you've had since the last meeting on, specifically use of funds from the bottle bill?
I don't, you're jogging my memory as we're talking about this, and I think it's making me acknowledge that I've been distracted. But yeah, I'm curious about the composting thing, especially, so it came up, and yes, it's, related and perhaps just side conversation, but I think the question really is like, how far can we extend it? Because we're more rural in a different kind of town, and we're not gonna have any urban streets to clean up, and we're a little more spread out. Wonder how
Right.
variable it might be
Right.
to use differently. But we're not unique. There's plenty of small, or not small in population, large in area, rural towns in Connecticut. So, but I probably said that last time, so I'm sorry if I have nothing better to add to the conversation.
Okay, I just, sorry, I'm pulling it up. There was also talk of something, I'm just trying to pull up the link to it. There was discussion about, it was one of those very typical sort of, like, it's very helpful, I think, to have this kind of, general collaborative brainstorming session with all these towns. But because it was just sort of like everybody chiming in, there was sort of like, it jumped between conversations that people were saying things verbally on the Zoom, as well as a whole conversation, not separate, but like additional conversation happening over the chat. So I saved the chat afterwards, like I copied and pasted the chat so that I would have the like resources that people were sending in the chat. But it was just kind of hard to follow because like some people were talking about stuff verbally, and then there was like some people were just kind of communicating over the chat. But there was something called Right Feeds in Berlin, Connecticut that caught my attention as well. And I'll pull up the, they were talking about, that was something that was interesting that let me pull it up. It's called Right Feeds. I was just pulling up my chat notes from that session. So that might be something we can look into. In the chat, hold on one second. Right. Yeah, it's this. It's I admittedly haven't like dug into this deeply. I just had been going over my notes from the chat, like my copying and pasting the notes of the chat into a Word document, and I was reviewing it before the meeting, and I was like, oh, what was this Right Feeds thing? But yeah, I think this was actually in I think this came up more about the composting, because it seems to be about like composting food waste. So yeah, sorry, that had nothing to do with the bottle bill, but I remember them talking about it, and it making me think that it would be interesting to look into. So, because I think they pay you to, I think it almost is like replenish, but we recycle your unwanted food and turn it into nutritious animal feed. We offer 100% sustainable option for diverting food waste from landfills and incinerators. Our process creates a consistent, environmentally conscious and more affordable option for feeding livestock. Yeah, it was something about they buy your compost or something. So, I'll contact them just to see what it's about, but it wasn't about the bottle bill. I just remember it caught my attention for a different reason.
All right.
So yeah, let me, as a next step, I'll talk to Bob and see if anything sparked his attention, but does anybody know any nonprofits that, like, I know, for example, like New London Homeless Hospitality or, Warm Center or something like that, which are dealing with kind of homeless populations that maybe would be looking for some sort of work program. But I don't know like what types of nonprofits might be interested in collaborating on something like this.
I can give you some background on the bottle bill and why certain things didn't work. And I personally think that's a great idea, like about the people, but there's a lot of union pushback. And that's one of the reasons that went down. There's been a box, a wooden box at the dump that is supposed to be for the Boy Scouts to pick up and manage. Of course, that gets put on the leader of the group. The Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or whoever could go and pick up bottles and things like that without getting a problem with the unions. However, to get kids to actually go out and do that is like pulling teeth.
Right.
I've been looking for somebody to
Indeed.
help me with my lawn, and that's been going on for over 10 years. So to have them actually work for it, I mean, the parents end up doing it. Anyway, that was that. One of the problems with the state, with the assembly, getting more of the bottles and whatnot recyclable is they get terrible push from the businesses that produce the bottles. They see that as another, they see that as a problem with getting people to buy their product. And I've been reading the different bottles labels lately, and nothing is the same throughout the country. First of all, there's 10-cent recyclable and there's 5-cent recyclable. Some states have I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. It has to, California and it is one of them that has a 3 or 4 letter program that I have no idea what that is. But Maine will give you 10 cents per bottle. So I always thought, well, if I wanted some money, I could pick them up here and take them up there. It would give me, some pay for a trip. But seriously, the distributors, every time a bottle bill comes up in the assembly, the distributors fight it, and then they get the business organizations into it. Coke and Pepsi both fight it, and the assembly doesn't really want to get beaten up when the elections come. So they've been kind of caving in that respect. But there could be more bottles and whatnot that people are buying that could be recyclable. just because it doesn't have bubbles in it, doesn't mean that it shouldn't have a 5-cent tag on the bottle. People are buying water in pint bottles by the case, and half of them end up on the roads. That's
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think more bottles are getting the 5-cent deposit.
Oh yeah,
And-
but they're not uniform.
No,
throughout-
they're
No.
not. They're not.
And some people say, "Oh, it's 5 cents. Who cares?" Anyway, the pushback from Coke and Pepsi. Oh, do you know who gets the money if the bottles don't go back? The distributors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who already collected on the bottles.
That makes sense.
Oh my
That makes
gosh.
sense.
Yeah, so they
So
get
in-
double.
So in this case, we have this fund that's growing because the way it works now in Connecticut is that every time someone goes into a liquor store and buys a nip, so like a small little bottle, tiny little one-shot bottle of alcohol, there's an extra 5-cent. Is it 5 cents? 5-cent
I believe so, yeah.
fee,
I
and
think
that goes into a fund that every municipality, every town can use for some purpose that benefits essentially the environment, but there's some limitations around that. So that's what we're talking about, is trying to figure out how we can use that money, which exists and is there.
When did that
Um,
change?
It was this past year, it's within the past year.
Okay, I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
that's
Okay.
Because we were pushing for that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I bet.
But that covered what I wanted to say. You'd have to get the union on board, and it would be nice to get the distributors on board, but I don't see that happening.
Right. Yeah, that's a
And I
bigger
don't
issue.
see
It's
I don't
challenging.
see the scouts wanting to work for something either, but maybe I'm wrong.
Nah, kids aren't doing anything these days. I think you're right about that.
Here we
Got
go.
personal experience.
Here, I'll
I can
send-
say
Sorry.
about the organizations that might have some, whether, people who are interested in doing the work. I don't know if it has to be within North Stonington. I know there is the Johnny Cake Center in Westerly that does,
Right.
it's a non-for-profit, lots of outreach, lots of different fingers in different aspects of sort of social supports that isn't just, beyond the thrift shop and the food pantry. So potentially something to look into.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thought. Chris, here's I just pulled up I think this article is what we had looked at. It's just an article that kind of in Connecticut Insider that gives a little bit of more information about the bill, just for reference. But basically the sale of more than 84 million miniature liquor bottles, it's specific to NIPS. It's only for NIPS, generated 4.2 million in additional revenue for cities and towns to spend on environmental and litter removal efforts over the last year. The first in which the state began charging a 5-cent surcharge on the tiny bottles. So it was first approved in 2021. And so now it's basically like about a little over a year in.
Well, I'm happy about the nips.
Yeah. I think when I last talked to the finance director we can pull up what our town has received kind of so far, but basically it was something in the range of $16,000 or so that North Stonington had and as kind of put aside towards doing something, cleanup related, and just hasn't landed on exactly what that is. And they had, kind of looked to our committee to see if we had any ideas for what, how we could put this to use to really clean up the trash. So
Yeah, it's a good reminder to talk about this because I think, we talk about a lot of things, but in this case, there's money, it exists, and maybe we should at least, I'm going to say that I'm going to make a goal of trying to prioritize the fact that we, as a small group of people, can actually do something about what we can do about that money.
right.
So I'm going to lean into that. That's my homework.
So I'm just taking notes. Johnny Cake, maybe Worm Center, New London. hospitality. I through work have contacts at these places. I could kind of run it by them to see if, maybe if they're not the right organization, maybe they'll have ideas for, who might be the good person to partner on this.
Yeah, sure. That's a great place to start. Sure, that'd be awesome.
And I'm gonna ask Bob about debrief on the coffee hour webinar with Sustainable CT, just to find out if maybe something else kind of caught his attention, and then Brightfeed, contact them. Okay, that's probably anything else on that, because it might be kind of a good segue into the next topic, unless you wanted to add anything else.
Great.
The next one was a bottle recycling program through Replenish, that company that is the end purchaser of, they'll directly pay you for your recycled goods, that largely a lot of items which can't really be otherwise or won't otherwise be recycled in a single stream kind of recycling program that we have, including nips. They will recycle nips, which I think not every, but like a lot of recycling plants won't actually recycle them. Bob and I have a call. He's going to involve Donnie, the highway foreman, in this meeting, this call with the point of contact, or like the rep from Replenish. And I have that on my calendar at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, the 26th. I know, like, it's probably hard for you to join, Craig. I'm happy to invite anybody else who's interested, but I know that's smack in the middle of your day. But that's to further that discussion, because the point that has come up before from Bob and Chris, you kind of brought up that the Boy Scouts, collect different bottles and cans at the recycling at the transfer station, which is true. And that's been sort of a hesitation from Bob and, kind of the town in particular, and pursuing Replenish to not like cannibalize their business. And when I've talked to Replenish about it directly and that concern, they've said, no, we would be kind of driving more recycling and not taking away from what the Boy Scouts are doing. It would actually maybe contribute to what they're doing. So he said that he had kind of a counter argument towards that. And I said, there's only so much he could say to me. Like, I'd rather involve the people who are, decision makers, and also with the logistics of Replenish, because it will require some, different receptacles that are around town, and also have to be like, the town has to alert Replenish when they need to get pickup for some of these things. So it's something that somebody kind of above my pay grade needs to be involved in to see if it's something that's feasible from an administrative standpoint. So anyway, that call will be on Thursday. So I'll hopefully be able to kind of give you some on the next meeting, like how that went and what we're doing in terms of moving forward. But it would be great if there was some sort of symbiosis between what we can do on the nip side and collecting nips, because I did confirm with Replenish that they do recycle nips. So it would be a way for us to directly get the nips, bring them to Replenish to recycle, and then get paid for those nips. So it'd almost be like we almost have the opportunity to get double income for those nips, both like what's sold in the town and then what's collected based on what's thrown out the window from, in nips bottle. So more to come on that based on whether we move forward with Replenish. But I feel like maybe we could augment our fund by which to actually do a cleanup if we're getting paid from two sources for those bottles.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything else on that before I move on?
Oh, that's good.
The next thing, which is, this is giving Elaine something near and dear to her heart, and I'll give Elaine a chance to speak about this. So Elaine very kindly generously brought to our attention the fact that Wild and Scenic Rivers was offering a grant to different organizations that could provide something that, would help in sort of the watershed issues and river environmentalism. And so, I had been, as you might remember, Craig, I had been talking to the executive director of Project Oceanology, because when we were talking about like, you know, how can we incorporate sustainability in, you know, through the school system. And I was like, okay, well, Project Oceanology exists. Why are we reinventing the wheel? Let's just see if we can get them involved. And so Andrew Ellie, who's the executive director of Project Oceanology, collaborated with, you know, had a call with Elaine, and Elaine was very helpful in, you know, kind of guiding Andrew on what the content of the programming would need to be in order to be eligible for the grant application. And so we submitted it. I submitted on behalf of the town, but, you know, Andrew had basically written most of it. Obviously, I can't write about the programming, but I reviewed it and, you know, kind of came up with our own language for why this is important to us as a town sustainability committee. So Elaine, do you want to say anything about that?
Let's see. I got a copy of the grant application. As the representative for North Stonington, we always get sent whatever grants are submitted from our town, we get a copy. And I really looked very nice to me. I know that we have more grant applications than we have money for this round.
Okay.
So it's not a given.
Right.
But it's being reviewed right now, and I think they'll know by March. I think it'll get through the whole system and get before the council and get voted on by March. So you should hear something by March. But I thought it looked great. I would have preferred that the field portion would be on freshwater rather than saltwater, but
okay.
yeah.
Because I think they were going to do it at
They're doing it at Barn Island.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
Barn Island. But the concepts are still the same. So that sounded good to me. That's the only hiccup that I thought might be an issue when it goes through the grant process.
I see.
But we'll see. We'll see in March.
The nice.
That's great. That's great though. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but just,
No, go ahead.
well, kudos for making all that happen. That is such awesome stuff. I'm excited to hear that. I'm curious about just like very broad strokes, what the grant is, what it says. Or you know what the application is, what we're asking for.
I can pull it up and let you know. Hold on 1 second. I have to, it's in my work email and I'm in my non-work. I'm gonna have to do a little shifting around.
You can send it to me later. I guess in like a
Sure.
sentence or two is fine.
So it was, Elaine, do you want to talk about it or do you want me to?
It was asking for, I think it's 5th grade, right? So every
believe
5th
so, yeah.
grade class in North Stonington was going to have an in-class presentation about the importance of filtering of water before it gets to any water body. And then they were going to have a field trip, which would be really fun for the kids, to Barn Island to look at the different, to look at the salt marsh and to understand how that filters the water before and anything from land gets out to to sea or to parts of the wild scenic watershed. So that's pretty much it. But it was every 5th grade class and it was an in-school and a field trip.
Yes, it's 6th grade. Sorry.
6th grade. Okay, every 6th grade class.
Yeah. Oh, that's just wonderful. I see what you mean about the saltwater versus the freshwater, but yeah, what a great opportunity.
So those grants are up to $4,000 that we have right now, small grants that we're giving out.
Yeah, students will learn. So students will learn and will become engaged and excited about the process of science. Students will learn disciplinary core ideas in science. Proposed lessons for this program include water filtration, which is an in-school segment that would be about water treatment. Water treatment plants purify water, but so do natural habitats such as marshes. In this engineering challenge, children learn about water purification and design and test their own water for purification devices. And then the second part is Salt Marsh Transect Study, which is on Barn Island Wildlife Management Area. Marshes are among the most delicate and important habitats in our area. Healthy marsh grasses produce nearly 10 tons of organic matter per acre per year. These nutrients promote the growth of marine organisms, and marshes are important nursery areas for offshore animals. So it's them delving into kind of real world examples of the importance of and how marshes promote clean water and biodiversity and that kind of thing. The nice thing about this, what would be great, is that so the new superintendent, Troy Hall, I believe is the name of the school, is familiar with Project Oceanology. But Project Oceanology hasn't been, North Stonington hasn't been a member town of Project Oceanology for quite some time.
Right.
So
right.
it would be nice if through this grant opportunity, there was some reinvigorated, and if it is something that seems valuable from an kind of educational standpoint, it would be nice to kind of get some exposure back into the Project Oceanology kind of curriculum and types of activities that they do, in order to maybe justify more involvement going forward. I think we've kind of stagnated because there just hasn't been, I'm sure it's budget, but with this way, we wouldn't have to use town funds because, we don't have the budget for it now, but maybe it would garner enough kind of interest, if this amongst the 6th grade students and then the parents, to maybe say, hey, we need to budget at least a little bit more money for this for other students as well. That's my wishful. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's my wishful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great.
I'll send you a copy of it. Sorry, I didn't do that earlier.
No, it's good.
Anything else, Elaine, on while we're on the topic of either this grant or just wild and scenic rivers, did you want to update our committee or anything that you'd like us to get in that is sort of on your radar that we should get involved in?
There is a walk. I'll send you the link. There's a walk on Barn Island, as a matter of fact, that Wild and Scenic is paying for through the Mashantucket Pequot Museum. I think it's the museum, but I'll send you the link and you can send it out to people. We would like to get that out to North Stonington residents more. I know it showed up on the Facebook page, but I'm not sure how else to notify residents about upcoming activities.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another way?
I can post it on the town's sustainability Facebook page, but I don't think that has a lot of viewership.
Traffic. Yeah.
I do it anyway. What about Nextdoor or something? I know people use that in various capacities, but I don't know if you've ever used Nextdoor.
I did in Ashway when I lived there, but I haven't joined the North Stonington one. Are you a member of that one?
I am. Okay. I never, the last time I posted, I get notifications from them. So I just see the emails when they come through sometimes. But the last time I posted was when we had a kitten show up on our door and I was trying to see if it had an owner. And that kitten is now a 2-year-old cat that is very much ours because it was didn't belong to anybody else. But anyway, that's the last time I've used it to post anything. But I know people are quite active on it. So maybe that would be another.
I'll look into that. I'll look into joining the North Stonington one. It's a great idea. And that's all I have to update at the moment. We're sort of in our figuring out where we want to go from here. We're having a large meeting tomorrow night to start that conversation and see if we're able to put more money into the small grants or if we want to try doing larger projects. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to update at the moment. I should know more in a few months.
On the topic of that walk, is that something that maybe could be posted with the school? Do you think it's something that would be of interest when we're talking about the school children and getting interest in water conservation? Would it be something that you think kids would be interested in? And maybe we could see if the school could post it?
It is, am I still, yeah, it is family oriented. I
Okay,
was at the Conservation Commission meeting last week, and they said that the school can't let, because of liability issues, the schools cannot let the kids know about things like this within a school setting.
Mhm.
They can't
Mm.
send it to the parents. They can't send something home. Yeah,
I see, okay.
that's
Um,
okay. I'll do next door, and I'll put it on Facebook again, and that'll be fine.
I'll put it certainly on our sustainability committee Facebook page, but as I said, I don't think you're gonna necessarily get a bunch of people. What about the Bill Ricker heads the Conservation Commission? Have you shared it with him?
I was at the meeting and I talked, but I didn't mention that. I'll send him a copy too.
You
That's a
have
good
his
idea.
email address?
Yeah, I do have his email.
Okay, thinking that might be something they'd like too.
Mhm. No, that's a good idea. I will do that.
Another thing on and I was hoping Pat would join. She said her email said, I see an email for Zoom for this Tuesday. If you have to change this, she was saying that she can't do some other days, but she seemed like she could come tonight, but I guess she didn't. She didn't after all. But anyway, she had, the background is that Elaine had kindly again shared an example of planting ordinance encouraging towns to use native plants. And so I had copied Pat on that email because Pat, as you all know, was very involved in the pollinator pathways and, obviously native plants, pollinator pathways, a lot of congruence in that. And so Pat just responded to me directly, even though I was, copying both her and Elaine to see what Pat thought of it. And she got back to me saying, it would be great if we had such an ordinance, but there would be resistance to another ordinance, just kind of having another town ordinance. If we could get the selectmen and Conservation Commission to endorse a policy, I'd be all for it. Let's discuss this. So Elaine, I was wondering if you have any other background information on, this like how other towns get ordinances of this nature, like the best way to go about it, what it would, do you have any advice on this?
I don't, and I'm so new to North Stonington. I don't have a good feel for how the process would be. That just came across my desk, and I thought, that sounds like something your committee might like to pursue. I think someone who has gone through the process or has been living in North Stonington for quite a while and has an idea how these things occur, that they'd be a better source for that.
Right. Yeah, that's why I think it would be helpful to get Pat involved in this because, again, like she's spearheaded the pollinator pathways and she's lived in town for a really long time. And I have no idea if anything about ordinances. Maybe I'll send her a note and just see, maybe we can organize a meeting just with like Bill, Bob, Pat, and anybody else who wants to join to talk about, Elaine, if you want to join and see if, Bob is I just walked in there the other day I was honestly there for something banking related. And I just said, can I schedule a meeting with you to talk about a few things? And we just hashed it out right there. He's great about just being very accessible, so I feel like he'd be open to having a meeting on it, maybe.
I think that's a great idea. I probably wouldn't attend. I'm going to try to stick to wild and scenic river type of things so I don't get spread too thin. But the meetings I've had with him, he's absolutely open to listening. And that's a great place to start. He'll tell you whether it's possible, not possible, how to go about it. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, that sounds good. But thanks for sharing. I appreciate that you're keeping us sort of, in the know on these things. Craig, do you have any thoughts on that? I feel like it's one of those things I'm like, yeah, it sounds great, but I don't know what goes into an ordinance. So I feel a little bit out of my depth in saying like, let's go for it or not. But any thoughts?
Yeah, that's where I am. I've really literally nothing to add to that other than rah rah Suskumbah sounds great. I support it.
I also have not lived here long enough to, although we were talking to somebody recently who was like, how long have you lived in town? And I said, 5 years. And they said, oh, okay, you've lived here a long time, long enough or something. I
Oh,
was like,
look at you. Depends on who you ask, right?
exactly. Okay, so the next thing is the agricultural event. Craig, I know we had some emails, just like kind of soliciting ideas. I think this might be something that I'd love Emma's, I don't know if you have anything. Basically, what Bob had said was that, I thought in our past meetings, we've had gone around and around a little bit about we'd love to have some sort of forum or presentation on the benefits kind of from a fiscal perspective on no-till farming, regenerative farming practices for the farmers in town. And the thought was like, A, who would we get to present, but B, like how would we organize this and like get everybody together? It's hard to be like, hey guys, you want to come out? And so when I saw this in the North Stonington Quarterly that North Stonington's already working on sort of a few town forum that's dedicated to agricultural topics, I was like, all right, we've already got our place. Like now,
Yeah, that's the ticket, right? Exactly.
like, oh my gosh, then we don't even have to, I'm trying to think of ways that we can not reinvent the wheel every time because we are small and can only handle so much. And so I talked to Bob about it and he was like, yeah, if you can get a speaker and, you think it's going to be something that is palatable to, it's going to be value add, not going to be, something that's jamming information down their throat that would be in a negative kind of way. And you can, he'll slot us in. He seemed very open to it as long as we kind of pick the right person and, run it by them first. But he was all for it. And so, and we both agreed, it would be preferable if it's somebody who's not like an academic who's approaching it from like, this is the reason you need to do it because it's going to eliminate carbon CO2 emissions, but like rather, this is why it makes sense practically for you as a farmer and a business owner. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah, they need to have tractor cred is what they need.
Right, exactly. Thank you. I love
It's the equivalent of
Tractor
street cred. It's tractor cred. They need tractor cred.
I love it. That's awesome. So, I think Emma, I wanted her to be involved in this conversation and I can debrief with her afterwards if she has any subsequent ideas. I know kind of preliminarily, she said, either somebody would have to be paid, which I don't know if we can, of course, there's always the sustainable. I can ask Bob if we have any budget for speakers. I kind of doubt it. But I can certainly ask, but it could be something there's always the sustainable CT matching grant, but again, how much time do we have before it? What's the speaker fees? What are we talking? Are we talking, a couple $100s, a couple $1,000 is obviously a huge difference depending on, what they'll charge. So I need to find out from Emma what they'll charge. Meanwhile, I have reached out kind of anecdotally to a few different people, including, remember, Craig, I don't know if I was telling you about the event that Mike Ergo had at Trillium, the brewery. And
Yep.
Trillium's owner is this guy named JC. Oh God, what's his name? And he's really into regenerative farming, sort of just for their own business. And so I contacted him and he had an idea he said like, he wouldn't be the right person for it, but he recommended this organization. Hold on, I'm just pulling it up, called Earth Care Farm. He thought they might have somebody who could farm.com. So I haven't contacted them yet, but that was his suggestion. He said they've been making incredible compost for a long time, so it would be supplying all of the farms in the area who would be practicing regenerative agriculture. So he said not necessarily that they would, not that they would be the presenter, but they might know a farmer who's like gotten into the regenerative farming, but would be in a position to kind of speak like the language.
Right.
So I'm going to contact them. I just haven't done it yet. But that's another avenue to kind of pursue if they know somebody who would be willing to join. But it's in March. They haven't confirmed the date yet of that agricultural, like I think they had a date on the flyer, but they're changing the date, but it's in March. So we have at least like, a month to kind of figure out a speaker, hopefully. But if we can get somebody that we think would be doing a service rather than disservice, it seems like Bob would be supportive of including them, which I think could be really important.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if you have that connection, that's a good place to reach out. I mean, obviously Emma's the one that has some skin in the game on this and has some experience, so is more in the know. So I mean, I'm going to defer to her if she's able and willing, and it's a great opportunity for sure.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, because it's really hard to like, how are we supposed to organize something and who's going to come to something that the sustainability committee is throwing, you know what I mean?
Right,
But I was
nobody,
like, oh my
you can't
God,
get the butts in the seats, right? But here they are, everybody's there, so they're lined up and ready to go.
So if you have any, ideas or you come across anything, just kind of keep it on your radar, I guess, for, give you any ideas that for somebody who might be a good speaker. The other thing is like, I feel like there would be plenty of opportunities for somebody who's a speaker on this topic, but who's like kind of at, lives in a different state, but could speak to it and be credible. But my thought is that this really needs to be somebody who's comes in person. Like, even if I haven't even asked about visual, capabilities, but don't you just feel like,
yeah,
it's got to be somebody in person?
Right. It's got to be really, it's got to land because it's a big sell. It's a lot to ask.
We might consider the Ag Fair as a venue for bringing people in to speak.
Huh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
We have a frozen population. I mean, it's a guaranteed population. So they might swing by and hear some of it and keep going, but they might stop and stay.
That's interesting. Have there been, this is a silly question, but have there been like talks at the, I have gone to the Ag Fair before, but I haven't been there for the whole thing. Have there been like prior kind of lectures or talks by somebody, or is it,
we wouldn't call it a lecture or you'd get no one.
Right.
A
demonstration, be a demonstration, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. Demonstrations are very good. But any of the people selling, they know that if you keep talking, that people will listen and move on or stop and stay.
That's a great idea. So have people done demos?
Just something to think about.
Oh, that's a great idea. Have there been like demos? Again, I won't say lecture, but demos on different topics at the Ag Fair before?
I don't know if there's been any for North Stonington, but I've seen them at other state or town, small town groups, and they always have those kinds of things at the Big E that people go and listen to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've seen that in different places too.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, if you're looking, it's hard to get people off their chairs to go to a lecture.
Yeah.
But that's true.
But you've got a captive audience at the fair. If they want to listen, they'll listen. If not, they'll move on.
Right. I mean, Emma did the talk, right, at the library. That's how you got connected with her in the first place.
Right, exactly.
So she would definitely be the person. She's a farmer, albeit a small scale farmer. And if we're able to find someone for March, right, and that sort of like plants a seed, and then she's someone who has that resource and more information at the ag fair for continued conversation and discussion and demonstration, that would, I think, be the way for it to sort of evolve.
Could
Because
you
you're not
have a
going to get
booth?
people just hear some things and then like change their, livelihoods.
Right. Right.
Could you have a booth at the fair?
Yeah,
Did they give
yeah.
you space for that?
Yeah, they
Bet
offered
you
us
we could
last
even
year.
get it free.
Yeah. And then you can have handouts and talk to people.
That's a great idea.
Along the line of the farmer's market type of thing. Of course, you do need people to man the booth.
Right.
We're volunteering Emma for that during the middle of busy farm season.
Yeah, because I was working with the secretary or something like that last year when we were thinking of doing the composting, the composted stuff, food stuff. I could ask her if, how we go about getting a booth. Let me talk to Emma about it first, because she might not be able to, if we can't man it with somebody who can talk about it intelligently, it's sort of a dead deal. So let me ask Emma.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else on that's a great idea though. Thanks, Chris.
Anytime.
Let's see. I'm going to try to prioritize because I know we're kind of over an hour. Other thing, Bill had contacted me about, and I just wanted to bring it up in case, see what everybody thought about, involvement in this. There is a trail. Hold on, let me pull it up, the email. That they're working on a wheelchair ramp. Let me pull it up. The Conservation Commission is working on a project to provide a wheelchair accessible handicap trail on the existing, ramp, on the existing Assaconk Borderlands Trail behind the school playing fields. They're applying for 2 separate grants. One is for the lumber for a raised walkway over 2 sections of wet, muddy areas, and the other larger grant for resurfacing a 1/4 mile existing trail with semi-permeable stone aggregate. Should the first grant be approved, we plan to build 120 by 60 inch raised walkway for which we would need community folks to assist in building. Basically, he was asking if the sustainability committee would want to get involved in some way, I guess, like in helping build it physically. We would have the summer to accomplish this first phase of the plan. I'm not good at construction, but I fine at following directions. Like somebody tells me where to hammer a nail, I can do it. But if you ask me like, oh, how would you construct this bridge? I would be like, haha, no. So I'm happy to help if it's just brunt labor, but anybody else interested in collaborating in that in some capacity?
I can give you an update on that.
Oh, okay, great.
The Conservation Commission looked into it more and found out that they did not have to build the ramps.
Oh,
so
okay. Late in
that's
the
that's off the table. But they did apply for a grant for putting the underlayment down, and then they're going to apply to the state of Connecticut. Well, they applied to Wild and Scenic for the underlayment, and they applied to they're going to apply to the state of Connecticut for the crushed gravel that goes in there. It's kind of a long way from worrying about whether you need to be available. First, they have to get the money. They
Okay,
need the money. But it would be good at some point if yeah, I'd love to see more residents get involved in working on some of these townwide projects. But they are a long way from getting the funding to do that.
Okay, I wonder if he knows about, again, you know, I sound like a broken record. The matching grant program for the sustainable CT. I wonder if he's aware of that, you know, maybe that could be an avenue to get some additional funding. I can send him a note. Do you know if he's mentioned that?
No, he hasn't, and I hadn't even thought of that. So yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll send him a note just letting him know that that exists. You know, it's not, they don't have huge dollars available. And you have to, you know, it's like he has to run he'd have to run the campaign to get the individual donations matched. But you know, it's another avenue if he wants to explore it. So I'll send him a note about that. Let's see, the local farmer map, I don't really have, I put it on the agenda just because I know we've discussed it before. Craig, I've admittedly, I still like the idea of the map, but I know in prior conversations we've discussed like, you know, a physical farm store that would sell stuff from, you know, the local farmers in one kind of hub. And I've kind of gotten off that idea a little bit, largely because I'm concerned about, like, Native Eats does a little, like, kind of that concept. And I talked to Kim, one of the, you know, owners of Native Eats, and I think it's a great thing what she's doing. The fact that, you know, they are delivering like goods from local farmers and providing them, you know, to people through this service. And I guess I'm just a little concerned about, like, kind of taking away from her, you know, if like there
Right.
is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be kind of like they're doing a cool thing, and to then say like, well, we've decided that we want to, you know, do this. And I don't know if I have the expertise to make sure that it doesn't become like some sort of competitive battle, especially when we have a lot of other stuff going on.
I agree with you. I mean, that they are an organization that does that. And we are some people that do a lot of other things. And I think it's good. It's good to support, maybe, you know, somehow support or spread the word on what is being done already.
Right.
It's going to be a lot more effective than trying to just do something that probably isn't going to land as well, and then just create some, you know, spreading things thinner than they need to be.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, they're town of North Stonington residents. They are, you know, I know Emma had said, you know, I don't know exactly how it works out for the farmers from a, you know, financial perspective, but at the end of the day, they're like sourcing stuff locally, you know, finding an end buyer for those goods. And so I just feel like, you know, I'd love to your point, like kind of promote that and allow that to kind of be a better avenue for people to buy local than, and I actually was emailing with her about an idea I had for their business. So, you know, I feel like for them to grow would be awesome if we, you know, more people could just buy from local farms through them, if possible, rather than kind of like starting something separate that might dilute it a little bit, you know?
Yep, I agree.
I get it if it's something that everybody is championing. It's not my decision to just be like, no, I'm done.
Right.
And you know, that's why Emma might have a that you sort of my point a little. Do you think it's okay? It's justified.
You're doing the breaking up thing again, but I think
really?
you're just, yeah.
Oh, I'm sitting. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You're okay with that thought process?
Yes, I concur.
Maybe in the interest of time, so I had a meeting with the exec, and this was kind of not necessarily specifically for sustainability committee, but we spent about half of the meeting talking about it. Amanda Kennedy, who's the executive director of the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments. It's called CCOG. And I asked her because, you know, they're like the council of governments for a bunch of different towns that neighbor North Stonington. So they have like a jurisdiction over a bunch of different towns. And so I asked her, hey, you know, like being on the sustainability committee of a small town, like, you know, we're still getting our footing and we're still trying to figure out what projects like can be successful and what we should dedicate our efforts to. And the CCOG has a lot of other kind of farming communities in their you know, in their kind of like system of towns that they support. So I said, basically, like, what are your recommendations for what we can do based off of not reinventing the wheel, but rather kind of taking, you know, maybe some ideas from other towns that have done this successfully. So the best thing that the thing that she shared, she was kind of like, oh, I don't know, that's a good question. She said there was an area that she thought we could focus on was municipal solid waste. And she said there was a report done by Naugatuck Valley's COG, so a different COG regarding pay as you throw. And municipal solid waste. And she was saying that she thought that Stonington had initiated some sort of pay as you throw program. I wasn't familiar with it. Does this sound like, is anybody familiar with that? I haven't come across it. But that was one of the areas.
Are you talking about paying by the bag that you bring to the transfer station?
Exactly.
Yeah, Stonington has it, as does Westerly.
Do you know anything about how it really functions? And
so they sell specific bags for the town that you buy. So you've paid for your bag by buying that. You pay for each bag by buying that specific bag. So it says Stonington all over. It's bright yellow bag. So you pay by the bag. And I think it works very well for encouraging people to recycle, because they don't want to be stuffing these bags full of things that they can get rid of for free by recycling.
Yep.
There's always the issue of does it encourage more throwing into the forests, because nobody wants to pay right now. Nobody sees, they don't see that cost because it's in your bill, it's in your tax bill. They don't see the cost for the transfer station. But they certainly have plenty of talking to Stonington and Westerly and seeing how they transitioned from what they had before to people paying by the bag would be a good way to start.
Or does it also, the other thing, just playing devil's advocate, does it also encourage people to like basically just put a bunch of trash in the recycling, and then, you know how they say like never put a plastic bag in recycling because then it clogs the whole thing and then they have to like do away with the entire act of recycling. So are people then putting in stuff that can't be recycled into the recycling because then they don't pay for it?
That's a good question to ask Stonington and Westerly. See how they've been doing it for years. So see how they feel about that.
Okay.
If I may, going with that kind of program was something that was discussed ad nauseum several years ago, and basically, basically people said that, look, I'm paying enough taxes as it is. Why should I have to pay? You know, like, for example, I pay $5,000 a year, and now you want me to pay more to get my garbage,
Right.
and I separate and everything. But the other issue was the throwing the stuff in the woods, because some people do that anyway.
Right.
I have a dump behind my wall, which was used by the previous owners of the house. It's fun to go through it. Yeah, it is actually. If you long as you don't cut yourself. Found a Popeye bubble pipe in there one time. But yeah, it got shot down basically because of the cost for the taxpayers to be paying additionally. Also, if you're using a garbage truck, they're private here. We don't have a,
Right. That was my next question.
yeah, and the third, my big thing is I don't buy bags. I haven't bought bags in 30 years, maybe 40 years, I don't know. And because we get enough plastic bags when we buy anything.
Right.
Everything is wrapped in a plastic bag. And if you use them, you don't have to use buy plastic to use in your garbage can or anything else. And I've functioned like that here for over 20 years. But the thing that concerns me too is our purpose is to reduce the trash, and we're creating more trash
Right.
by having to buy bags.
Right. Like, yeah, like the bags I use for trash bags are these like sustainable, I buy ones that are like made out of recycled plastic, so they're not to your point, like I'm sure the ones that they sell you aren't like that.
They have to be thick enough to carry the weight of the garbage, because if you're reducing how much garbage, you're going to stuff as much garbage as you can in one bag.
Right.
And so, what do we want? We want more garbage running around on our roads because somebody stuffed a bag and now they don't want to pick it up.
Right.
I respect the theory, but I'm against the bags. So I don't have a vote or anything, but that's my opinion.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I also heard complaints from people with multiple children because I'm a single. I don't create very much waste at all.
Right.
But somebody with 3 kids is going to have I thought I saw my hand go across. I don't have a camera.
Oh, that's Craig's hand.
Hey, Craig, cut it out. But the people with 3 kids who are having trouble getting by financially anyway.
Right.
I say they should have factored that in when they decided to have a child. But that's not a popular opinion.
No, I don't see the bags flying, and I don't see that working in North Stonington.
Yeah.
I don't know how Stonington and Westerly managed to switch over to that. It must have been pretty painful, I would think, for a while. But
Yeah,
the goal is to have fewer recyclables brought to the transfer station or picked up by the dump trucks, the local people. So that's a tough one. It's tough to get people to recycle properly. It's tough to get them to recycle at all.
Truth.
At some point,
the recycle properly is an issue because first of all, they kept changing the rules on what was recyclable and what wasn't. And then I plead guilty to putting the wrong thing in the recycling on occasion, and I care. So what about the people who don't care? And that's still a majority of the people.
And at some point, the landfills aren't going to be able to take all of these, the quantity that we all generate.
Exactly. Exactly. It's part of the whole system where society wants new. They don't want to reuse. And they feel like they have no time, which is probably true. They don't have the time to be careful about those things. I don't know. It's a societal problem. It's not an environmental problem. It's a societal problem.
Mm.
Get people to do what they're supposed to do. And if you figure that out, let me know.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's beyond the scope of our meeting tonight.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a really interesting, I just re-listened to this recently, for anybody who likes podcasts. TED Radio Hour is a podcast. It's an NPR thing. And there was an interesting episode called Repair, Repurpose, Reimagine. And it's along the lines of reduce, reuse, recycle. I just pulled it up. But it's really, really interesting on this kind of topic. So if you're Craig and all that drive time that you have, you might want to.
Yeah, send it to me. Great, thank you.
Called Repair, Repurpose, Reimagine. It's really, really interesting. But anyway,
Cool.
That means setting things back 40 years at least.
Mm.
I'd love it. It's the repair. They don't make things that can be repaired.
exactly.
And I've got an old vacuum cleaner that my father gave me from it has a sticker on it from the Olympics
Whoa.
in where is it? Up in New York State, Lake Placid. That's how
Wow.
old that is.
Wow.
And I have another one that someone gave me, same brand name supposedly. And I went to the repair and he said, throw that one out and fix this one because you can't fix the new one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that goes across the entire board. Things that used to last don't. So
Right.
again, it's the
Yeah.
whole idea of what you will do. Anybody want a baby bed, single, solid maple? Nobody in my family wants it. They'd rather have IKEA.
Mm.
Yeah, this is the really deep issue. I mean, you're right about all that, and
Well, I've been
It's-
at it for a while.
yeah, not enough people are listening, fortunately.
Well, I'm still preaching.
That's good. Don't stop. Don't stop.
Uh,
Love it. I love it.
I just can't do as much, and it's frustrating. But
Right.
I would like that little origami bird. That would be nice.
Oh, Craig, I was just going to say about recycling. I don't know if you've noticed, and I doubt it's the same company, but remember we were kind of trying to find a way to get that closed recycling receptacle at the school, and
Yeah,
we're
sure. Yeah.
going. There's one now. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's like a little shed, and it's for used clothes recycling, and it's right across from the high school. It's like at the old middle school.
Yeah.
Sign up that says like at the main entrance, like use clothing drop off to kind of point you towards the back. And I'm sure it had nothing to do with us, but I was just like, oh, something happened that we wanted to happen.
I did see that there. Yeah, but it's just clothes, right? It's not just like it's not all the textiles like we were talking about.
Right.
Clothes. Yeah. But yes, fantastic.
Better than nothing.
That's right. That's right. We're making progress.
Anyway, anything else before we adjourn?
Well, I think that's good. I appreciate everyone being on the call. Thanks for
Yeah.
the energy, Chris.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you all. Happy New Year again, and look forward to hopefully seeing you all the next time.
Okay, thank
Sounds
you.
great.
Motion
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Oh, I can't make a motion. I'm not officially on the group.
You're
But I-
welcome to join.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I have, my degree is in environmental engineer.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I taught a couple of college classes in it. And I was involved in Earth Day back in the 70s.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
yeah, and I had a major breakdown with the 4-year administration that was undoing everything I did. And so I'm kind of, I've lost my air. I'll talk a little bit, but it was like punching a balloon with a
Right,
big needle.
right.
And I don't have the energy to do that kind of stuff all over again.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I hear you. Well, thank you
I
for,
enjoy stopping in, and thank you. Do want to thank you for allowing me to speak freely. I'm one of the reasons why they put the little note on all of the town meetings about please keep your comments to 2 minutes.
oh.
Because what we did was we got several people in a row to speak, say positively on a subject, and we manipulated the times, and so they put the kibosh on it.
Filibuster. You filibustered.
Yeah, well, kind of, but the hair on my back goes up. Not that I have any, but the hair on my back goes up when I see that 2-minute warning. And they also put in the rule that you can't give your 2 minutes to someone else. Yeah, we're responsible for that too. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for speaking up. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a good evening.
All right, you too. Likewise. Take care. Talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.